Wanting a divorce to reunite with his ex-lover, but facing strong opposition from his family, Ngo Tan Kien repeatedly purchased poison to harm his wife and plotted with his lover to stage a traffic accident. On the evening of August 4, 2015, while riding an electric scooter with her daughter, Ngo tragically encountered a severe traffic accident. She died on the spot, and her daughter was seriously injured. Upon hearing the news, her husband, Ngo Tan Kien, rushed to the hospital, crying so uncontrollably that he almost fainted by his daughter's bedside. He knelt and begged the doctors to save his daughter. "My wife is gone. I cannot lose my daughter too." His swollen eyes and desperate cries deeply moved those who witnessed the scene. However, just 10 days after the incident, Kien was arrested for murdering his wife. When confronted with the charges by the police, he angrily protested, "My wife is dead, and my daughter is still in a coma. You should be arresting the driver who fled the scene, not me." But when the police presented evidence of his online transactions showing multiple purchases of aflatoxin poison, Kien fell silent, raised his hands, and let the officers cuff him and take him into custody. Ngo Tan Kien, 32, had been married to Ngo for nearly 10 years, a union arranged by their families. After the wedding, the couple was supported by Kien's parents, who rented them a small shop in Fuyang City, Anhui Province, to run a business selling funeral goods. Ngo won the favor of her in-laws with her filial piety, hard work, and ability to balance household responsibilities and manage the business. Despite being capable and resourceful, Ngo had a gentle nature and was very obedient to her husband. After giving birth to a son and a daughter, Kien's parents were even more satisfied with their daughter-in-law. Despite having such a good wife, Ngo was not content. To him, Ngo was not his ideal partner. Nonetheless, the young couple's life remained relatively stable until turbulence struck in 2012. Before marrying Ngo, Kien had dated a woman named Lisa Sa. The two had been in love since 2004, but Sa's mother vehemently opposed the relationship. Kien had even knelt before her parents to plead for their approval, but they were adamantly against it. Under family pressure, Sa proposed they break up. Afterward, both eventually married other people. Although they kept each other's phone numbers, they never contacted each other. In 2012, while making a delivery, Kien unexpectedly ran into Sa after many years. Both were deeply emotional upon meeting. From then on, Sa frequently sought Kien out to share her struggles with domestic abuse, receiving his care and comfort. Before long, they rekindled their past romance. The two began lying to their families to secretly meet. Previously, Sa's in-laws had often helped pick up and drop off her children at school. Now, Sa took on the responsibility herself. Meanwhile, Kien became more enthusiastic about business trips and deliveries. After Sa dropped off her children at school, Kien would pick her up, and they would go somewhere together. Over time, they grew tired of sneaking around. To be together openly, they decided to divorce their spouses first. When Kien suggested a divorce, the strongest reaction came not from Ngo, but from his parents. Kien's mother declared, "You can get a divorce, but if you do, leave this house. We'll keep Ngo and treat her like our own daughter, as if we never had a son like you." Facing his parents' firm stance, Kien turned to persuading his wife. However, having lived with his family for nearly a decade, Ngo had long regarded her in-laws as her own parents and couldn't bear to leave. Additionally, with two young children, Ngo didn't want them to grow up in a broken family. Although Kien openly stated his reason for wanting a divorce, Ngo chose to endure it. Her mother-in-law also advised her to be patient, believing that once Kien lost his infatuation, he would tire of his lover and stop demanding a divorce. Meanwhile, Sa quickly finalized her divorce without any obstacles. Frustrated by the lack of progress on Ngo's side, she angrily threatened to cause a public scene if Kien didn't keep his promise. Under pressure from his lover, Kien began considering eliminating his wife. He recalled a news story about an elderly man who had died from aflatoxin poisoning after eating chicken soup. Kien believed that if he killed his wife this way, people would assume she had accidentally consumed moldy leftovers and would not suspect him. Aflatoxin is a naturally occurring fungal toxin that causes acute poisoning and can lead to cancer. Kien immediately ordered aflatoxin online, however, he didn't know that Ngo, as a cautious mother, was extremely strict about food safety. The family rarely consumed leftovers out of concern for the children's weaker immune systems. Despite this, Kien secretly mixed aflatoxin into his wife's bowl of rice, but Ngo seemed to detect a strange smell and didn't eat any of it. He purchased aflatoxin twice more after that, but his plans always failed. On one occasion, Ngo ate a few spoonfuls of the rice but didn't feel any ill effects. It's unclear whether this was because she ate too little or because the toxin was fake. After 3 failed attempts, Kien became too afraid to poison her again. He grew increasingly anxious as Ngo continued to delay the divorce, while Sa kept pressuring him. One day, while meeting Sa at a motel, she again asked when Kien would finalize the divorce. At that moment, the TV broadcast a news report about a hit-and-run accident. Inspired, Kien thought of staging a traffic accident to kill his wife. The couple spent a long time meticulously planning the crime before deciding to carry it out. On August 1st, 2015, Kien used the driver's license information of a woman named Nak Mai to create a fake ID for Sa. He then instructed Sa to use the fake documents to rent a car from a rental company he had researched beforehand. Afterward, Kien took Sa to familiarize herself with the crime scene. He brought her to a road near his house, walked her through the route that Ngo would inevitably take, and pointed out which sections were suitable for the hit and run and which were best for escaping. Before parting, Kien gave detailed instructions, telling Sa to wait for his signal. While Sa appeared confident, she was terrified and hesitant to act. After 2 nights of nightmares, she contacted the car rental company on August 3rd, intending to abandon the plan and return the vehicle. When Sa expressed her desire to back out, Kien persuaded her. "You need to think carefully. Doan Kyo will never agree to a divorce. If she doesn't die, we'll never be able to be together openly, and I won't be able to marry you." Remembering how she had relinquished custody of her child to expedite her divorce, Sa realized she had nothing left if Kien didn't marry her. Reluctantly, the two resumed their plan, and Kien set the crime date for the next evening to prevent Sa from changing her mind again. On the night of August 4th, 2015, Kien instructed Sa to wait near his house. He then drove a van loaded with funeral goods, pretending to be out on a delivery. He stopped at a remote section of the pre-selected route, deflated his tire, and called a car repair service to establish an alibi. Next, Kien called his wife, claiming his car had broken down and asking her to come pick him up on her electric scooter. However, Kien didn't expect Q to bring their daughter along. According to their plan, once Q left the house, Sa would follow her and ram her vehicle at the designated spot. But when Sa saw the little girl riding on the back of the scooter, she was shocked and called Kien, asking if they should cancel the plan. With the repairman nearby, Kien could only respond vaguely, saying, "Do as you wish," to avoid suspicion before abruptly hanging up. Sa hesitated, but then received a text from Kien just 10 seconds later. "Do it now." Following the order, Sa drove straight into Kyoru. After the loud crash and severe impact, Sa stumbled out of the car and fled, following the escape route Kien had mapped out, eventually hiding in Sichuan province. Shortly after, Kien received a call from the hospital. He abandoned his vehicle, took a taxi to the hospital, and played the role of a devastated husband and father. After the incident, police attempted to locate the hit-and-run driver using the car's GPS, but discovered that the person who rented the car was not Nak Mai. They learned that Mai's driver's license had previously been reported lost, and that someone had used her information to obtain documents fraudulently. This led the police to suspect the case was not a simple traffic accident. During their investigation, police found that Kien had repeatedly demanded a divorce, which Ngo refused, and had purchased aflatoxin multiple times online. They also uncovered his extramarital affair with Sao, although she had disappeared by then. On the day of the incident, while his daughter was still undergoing emergency treatment, Kien was found using Ngo's phone to send a text to Sai, "It's done." This message provided crucial evidence linking the two to the crime. On August 13th, police arrested Sa in Sichuan and Kien at the hospital. Confronted with the evidence, the couple confessed to their crimes. At their trial on March 16, 2016, Kien and Sa were convicted of premeditated murder. Kien was sentenced to death, while Sa received life imprisonment.